This video is going to deal with the area of policy, how Sinn Féin policy is formed, what informs that Sinn Féin policy, who has a say in making policy, and how we activate that policy in campaigns. So, just to give you a brief introduction, if you're a new member of Sinn Féin is an All-Ireland party. We're a Republican and a Socialist party. We're committed to ending British rule in Ireland. We're also internationalist, feminist and environmentalist. I think it might be worthwhile to do a future video on the 5 ideologies that inform Sinn Féin policy: republicanism, socialism, feminism, internationalism and environmentalism. But for today we're going to focus on the Ard Fheis, policy being formed at the Ard Fheis and being activated in campaigns. The Sinn Féin Ard Fheis is an annual national event where members of the party propose, debate and vote upon motions that set and or inform Sinn Féin policy. So every local cumann is entitled to send 2 delegates to the Ard Fheis. These delegates have a right to vote and a right to speak on the motions. They also vote to elect the Ard Comhairle and the Sinn Féin leadership, the party president and the vice president and so on. Motions at the Ard Fheis are very wide-ranging. They're presented in a clár, in a document, and numbered from 1 to however many motions are to be debated and voted upon. Some motions might, for example, reiterate Sinn Féin's support or opposition on a certain issue. Others might express support for an entire policy document that might have been circulated and presented to the Ard Fheis and the membership in advance. And some motions might call on the Ard Comhairle to develop policy in a certain area. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples that will come up on the screen now of motions. This Ard Fheis condemns the policy of pursuing, arresting and charging Republican activists with involvement in the armed struggle for Irish freedom. If the conflict is over and the peace process is to have any meaning, former combatants should not be pursued and charged, and extradition proceedings against people such as John Downey should be dropped. Another motion reads, this Ard Fheis mandates any future government of which Sinn Féin is a part of to introduce policy aimed at addressing the issue of holiday hunger on the island of Ireland, when children are off school and are no longer in receipt of free school meals, and also calls on all future governments on the island of Ireland to implement this policy. And finally, another motion for illustrative purposes is, this Ard Fheis notes the significant social, economic and health benefits of new greenways being created across our island, and reaffirms its commitment to the implementation of the North's 620-mile greenway network and the implementation of greenways in areas ready for their development, such as Carryduff. So you can see motions are divided into sections, and you can see that they have very a wide reach and are very diverse. They can concern a very local issue in your community, or they can serve an international issue, such as on the issue of Palestine or global war. So while every member of Sinn Féin is entitled to attend the Ard Fheis, each cumann, as I've mentioned, selects 2 delegates to attend and to vote on their behalf. They have a right to speak on motions and to also address the motions that the cumann have submitted to the Ard Fheis. As I've mentioned in advance, a clár, a programme, is published which includes a list of all the motions to be debated. The clár also includes what we call standing orders. They're the rules that guide the Ard Fheis and the debate, and they might include times allocated to speakers, the time allocated to each section, and the role of the person chairing the sections. So in the weeks in advance of the Ard Fheis, it's quite common for your local cumann to meet to discuss the clár and the motions contained within. So, from my experience, Cumanns will go through the motions, and they will debate the motions at Cumann level, and some may mandate the delegates on behalf of that Cumann to support, abstain, or vote against a certain motion. So to recap, as a member of Sinn Féin, if you've identified an area where there's an absence of policy, or you want to bring a focus to an issue in your community, and you want the party to make a collective statement or to form policy on a political issue, where might you start? I would recommend identifying the issue, for example, children experiencing food poverty during school holidays. Research the issue as much as possible. Draft the motion. Propose that your local Cumann submit the motion to the Ard Fheis. If your Cumann agrees to support the motion, it will appear in the relevant section at the Ard Fheis. If you're a delegate on behalf of your Cumann, decide if you'd like to make a speech during the section, or ask another delegate to say a few short words on your behalf and on behalf of the local Cumann. Prepare a few short words to urge delegates to vote in favour of your motion. And finally, if the motion is passed, engage with Sinn Féin activists and public representatives on developing the policy further, and work with members to develop a campaign on the issue. Remember, if you're unsure about what policies would address the issue that you have identified, you could also draft a motion that calls on the Ard Comhairle to develop a policy on the relevant area. I'm now going to move on to how Sinn Féin respond to issues on a daily basis. So the Sinn Féin National Policy Unit is tasked with coordinating and administrating both the election manifestos and the alternative budget process. So the election manifesto is produced at election time. It contains the policies and the political statements that Sinn Féin want to implement in government. And the alternative budget process is an annual document that Sinn Féin present as an alternative to the government budget, i.e. what Sinn Féin would do in government if we had the Department of Finance. What would we implement in the budget term? The National Policy Unit in Sinn Féin that coordinates and administrates these processes includes a National Director of Policy, a Head of Policy in the 26 counties, and a Head of Policy in the 6 counties. The National Policy Unit endeavour to ensure that all policy is developed in a cohesive manner with a perspective that's national, that's truly national. It's the responsibility of Sinn Féin spokespeople, so a Sinn Féin spokesperson for finance, for example, to have a working relationship with the Sinn Féin spokesperson for finance in the 6 counties and the 26 counties, and vice versa. So, for example, again, the Sinn Féin spokespeople for health will engage on a very regular basis in developing policy positions and proposals. And Ard Fheis motions really act as a critical guide in the development of policy, and are a consistent reference for the National Policy Unit, for Sinn Féin spokespeople who are required to respond to very fast-moving politics and situations. I now want to give you a guide to Sinn Féin policy on a range of issues. The first issue that we're going to deal with is Irish unity. Sinn Féin is a United Ireland party. Our core political objective is Irish unity, and a referendum on unity is the means to secure this. Partition has been an abject failure and has negative consequences that continue to shackle the potential of citizens across this island. Republicans believed that until national freedom is achieved and an end to British rule secured, we cannot build the Ireland envisaged in the 1916 proclamation. In 1998, One of our achievements in the negotiations leading to the Good Friday Agreement was securing a referendum on unity. This democratic and peaceful mechanism to achieve Irish unity is a game changer. No previous generation has had this opportunity to end the union and partition democratically and peacefully. Healthcare. The health service is our most important public service, and the health of the nation is Sinn Féin's number one priority. Sinn Féin has a vision and a commitment that healthcare should be free at the point of use and available to everyone when they need it, based on need and not ability to pay. We want a legal foundation for the health service with rights and entitlements to healthcare for citizens. Sinn Féin has a plan to make the changes and health service needs. We do not seek change for the sake of change, but change to guarantee access to world-class, well-resourced services. Change to end healthcare based on postcode or bank balance, and change to ensure that interests of patients come first. Sinn Féin will invest in our health service to ensure it has the capacity necessary to deliver for patients when they are in need, while also reducing health costs for people. Housing. The housing crisis can be solved, but only with a radical change of policy and increased investment in public housing to meet social and affordable need. Sinn Féin plans to deliver the biggest council-led house building programme the state has ever seen. For 30 years there has been a housing policy consensus shared by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. Both parties, when in government, underinvested in council housing and over-relied on the private sector to deliver housing for workers and families. That consensus has failed. It's why we have record levels of homelessness, why rents continue to spiral upwards, and why an entire generation is locked out of the prospect of ever owning their own home. Why our housing system is so utterly dysfunctional. It does not have to be this way. The housing crisis can be ended. NAMA was established a decade ago to address the crisis created by the banking and property sector, with any recouped expenditure incurred on the loans it acquired being transferred to the state. The government's failure to address the housing crisis is one of the greatest threats facing our economy. Sinn Féin will use the projected €4 billion to be transferred from NAMA to the Exchequer as one-off capital investment in public housing. We believe that housing is a right, a social good, and not a commodity. We believe government policy must be tenure neutral, allowing individuals and families to decide what tenure, public, private, rental, or owner-occupied, best suits their need. Housing policy must work to ensure that every person has appropriate, secure, and affordable accommodation. I want to now talk about campaigning, how what structures are really central to the campaign, to campaigns that Sinn Féin activate, and so organised across the 32 counties, we are a radical campaigning activist party. The local Cumann is the most important part of Sinn Féin because it's the most visible, active Republican presence in any community. A Cumann must consist of no fewer than 5 people and no more than 20 people. It can be organised in a college, in a village, town, or university. Cumann members carry out a regular programme of work on a wide range of social, economic and political issues. And so the core aims of the Sinn Féin Cumann are to mobilise and empower communities, to build popular support for the party, and to articulate and implement Republican policies.